700 students. There will be no empty seats. Find you a spot
Hey,
and plan it.
I'm gonna unplug this blue one because it goes to this. We're not using that.
Go up and move over. Someone will be sitting next to you. Again, please come in. Go all the way up and move all the way over. There will be no empty seats here. Someone will be sitting next to you. We are a large campus now.
That one points
Please coming in very quickly. Go all the way up and move all the way over. We are going to be full. There are no empty seats beside
Top
you
one, yeah.
because we will have no room. So find you a spot, plan it. Good morning again. Please come in very quickly. Please go all the way up
network.
and find you a spot. We aren't going to have empty seats. We have quite a few students here at Wells Point High School, and all of us are going to be seated. So find you a spot so we can go ahead and get started. You guys are doing a great job. Looks like we're almost all in here, so the lines are winding down. Y'all looking great this morning. Good morning again for those of you who are coming in. We are going to be full. So if you will, please come in very quickly. Go all the way up. It looks from my view in the center section over to my right, there are some empty spots. The left looks pretty full, but the center section still has some seats available. Center at the top. Center section at the top has openings. Good morning, Tigers. Happy Friday before spring break. We are excited to have everybody here today, and we are even more excited thanks to y'all's feedback from the last time that we had Mr. Scott here. Mr. Scott, I refer to you as Mr. Scott. I know I'm a little older than you are, but there you go. I want to just say we appreciate all of your feedback. We want to be sure, I'm sorry I'm looking, and we're not seated properly in our chair. Thank you, sir, I appreciate that. All right, we're excited to have you all here. We're excited just watching you guys come on in here, being with your friends. We want this to be a fun, safe place for all of you, as you know, and it's good seeing all of y'all here like this, sitting with someone that you care about. Again, we are excited. Thanks Ms. Schmidt here for all her connections and help, because we got to bring back Jared Scott. We've already heard him before, and we are very, very excited to welcome him back. He's got some cool hip things, I think, that I'm not cool enough for, that he's going to do today that I've heard about. So if you guys will, please, let's welcome Mr. Scott back.
Issue. I cannot believe the response from our teachers. It's your story. It's through the things in life that you go through that make you who you are.
What really touched me is he talked about failure.
So if you're not talking about your feelings and you're not telling the full truth and you're not fully connecting with the people around you, and what we're really doing when we do that is we're holding back hope.
Since its inception, this program has reached millions of students and has a footprint in over 400 schools. Our speaker today promises not to disappoint with his message or his energy. Please put your hands together for our #1 youth speaker, Jared Scott.
All right, who wants a free t-shirt? Now the person gets a free t-shirt. I see you. All right. Look, I don't have patience. A lot of mistake when I walk in this place with a mask on my face. I can't escape it. I can't erase it, so I'm not embrace it. I'm not gonna take it off for y'all. Don't ask me. I don't know what's going on. I'm just tired. I need to sleep. I just need something to help me to breathe through the anxiety and the anger that's taking inside of me. I think it's breaking me, making me think about that. Not even playing my hand inside. But in my mind, I think I can hear sirens making me want it. Talk about that, I don't hurt nobody. Think about it, I'm saying next if I got it. Running out of time to speed out with my body. Need too much, if I don't wake up. Just tell my friends that it's not their fault. I know they want me, I'm just too numb right now. The feeling, I don't let them listen if I wanna let them in, but I just couldn't spill it. Just couldn't deal with the depression, I'm really sorry I let you like this, but it killed me. Not being able to live is the real me. I hope you feel me. Ladies and gentlemen, give yourselves one big round of applause. Real good. Thank you. Well, Will's point, it is good to be back. Let's give the teachers, the staff, and everybody over there, everybody over here, one big round of applause for having me back here today. Today I want to do something different. Most of the time when I come to a school, it's an assembly that we've done 1,000 times. But today, I want to know what's going on in your life. I want to know what's going on in your school. I want to know if we could really dig deep today and actually change the culture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you some questions today, just to start this off, and then we're going to build upon those things. We're going to do what I call the 7 levels of leadership. I'm going to go through these 7 levels with you, and based on your answers, we'll see where we get today. Does that sound good? But I need you to talk to me, okay? This is a conversation. This is a dialogue, okay? Level number 1 of leadership to me means to recognize what it takes. Recognize what it takes to be a leader in the first place. So I don't know if you remember much about my story last time, but I told you my parents were kids in high school and they had me. So they were just kids trying to raise a kid. The picture that you see up there on the screen, that's my dad. He dropped out of high school when he was 16 years old. Later, he went back, he got his GED, he went back to college, and he became a doctor. So your condition is not your conclusion, first of all. But second of all, when my dad was in high school, he was not the type of leader that I would have followed. He wasn't doing the right things. He wasn't respectful. He wasn't trustworthy. He wasn't the type of leader that I would follow. In fact, I didn't follow him at all. It took time for my dad to understand what it meant to be a father, what it meant to be a leader. And then once he embodied those qualities and those characteristics, he became the type of leader that I would follow. So when I put together this program today and I went to level number 1, I said, recognize what it takes, what type of leader would you follow? I used my dad as my example because I watched him earn the label of leadership. And that's what I think that we're all trying to do here today, especially in our childhoods. We're trying to understand what it takes, what we want, who we are. And that's the first level of leadership to me. I want you to think right now, and I want you to actually give me some feedback, give me some answers. Matter of fact, I'm going to come up there so I can hear you. What type of leader would you follow? What type of qualities, characteristics, what type of person would you follow as a leader? Raise your hand so we can do this right away. Right, I'm coming to you right here. Everybody else, I need y'all to be quiet. Not once of you can hear me. All right, in order for this to work, we're going to have to work together. What type of leader would you follow? Someone who respects themselves. That was the perfect answer. Can we please give her one big round of applause? All right, let's pause on that for a second, and then we're going to you, okay? I need everybody's attention. Respect is important. The very definition of respect is to admire somebody for their qualities, for their characteristics, for their achievements, for who they are. So in other words, you'd have to know somebody to respect somebody. Right? That's why when I came here the first time, I had to earn your respect. I had to tell my story, my personal story first, before you could connect with me and understand me and relate to me and have some respect for me. But I'll be honest with you, there's always a group of kids that no matter how hard I try to earn their respect, they show no respect. And it took me a while to figure it out, but once I figured out what the definition of respect was, I was like, oh, you'd have to know somebody to respect somebody. And you would have to have something in order to give it. Like, I can't give something I don't have, right? So the kids that wouldn't be quiet, I was like, oh, they don't have any self-respect. Because they don't know themselves. So they don't respect themselves. They don't have any respect to give. So I started to change the perspective. Instead of getting upset with people for not respecting, I turned it back on them and I said, well, maybe you don't know yourselves. Maybe that's our job here in our childhoods, to get to know ourselves. What makes us happy? What makes us sad? What makes us afraid? The things that we want, the things that we don't want. Right? And if we got to know ourselves, then we would have some self-respect, and then we'd have some respect to give. And then on top of that foundation of respect, we could build love, we could build trust, we could build all the things that it takes to have a good relationship with ourselves and with other people, right? Because think about it. Can you love somebody that doesn't love themselves? You can try, but they won't accept it. Can you respect somebody that doesn't respect themselves? It's going to be hard. Can you help somebody that won't help themselves? It goes pretty deep. You see what I'm saying? I could try to help you, but if you won't help yourself, then you'll still end up helpless. So I figured out whatever it is that you want from the world, you have to first learn how to give it to yourself. That includes love, respect, and help. So to me, that was a perfect answer, because respect is where we start. We start with getting to know ourselves. That's where we start as leaders. We don't start with everybody else. We start with getting to know ourselves. A lot of us, we do start with everybody else, and that's why we run out of that energy. Because what happens is we get hurt, and we go right to helping everybody else. Why? Because it makes us feel better. It does. You should feel like a good person. But the last level of healing is helping. The last level, for a reason. I use this analogy. Think about it like this. Somebody's down in a hole. And a lot of us have gotten a habit of going and sitting in the hole with them to make them feel better, like they're not alone in the hole. And that's good. That's honorable. That's noble of you to do that. But what happens is you go sit in the hole, and then you push somebody else and help them out of the hole. And now what happened? You're in the hole. And you have to rely on somebody else to come back and get you But a leader is somebody that changes their position first. They get themselves up out of the hole, and then they turn around, they reach down, and they pull people out. You see what I'm saying? It's going to take a lot of respect. It's going to take a lot of self-help. It's going to take a lot of self-love and self-care. We have to focus on ourselves and helping ourselves first. I believe that. And honestly, when you think about it, when you start to help yourself, that's taking action, right? And action is evidence that you have what it takes to become the person that you want to be. So when you start to help yourself, you start to respect yourself because you start to believe in you. And you use that as momentum to build that respect. And then once you have that respect for yourself, you love yourself. And when you love yourself, ladies and gentlemen, that's when you'll do whatever it takes to take care of you. You'll do whatever it takes to keep you happy, healthy, and alive. You'll unplug from the negativity. You'll plug into the positivity. You will do what's best for you. But it all starts with self-reflecting, getting to know yourself first. So that way the world can't label you. Nobody can tell you who you are. You know who you are. You know when people ask you, hey, how can I help you? And it's clear that you need help, but you don't know the answer. You don't know how they can help you. It's because you don't know you. If you knew you and you knew what you wanted and you knew what you needed, you would say it and you would do it. But what if you really don't know? Then you feel helpless. I had a little girl come up to me after a program one time and she said, this is going to sound weird, but she was like, I feel like a caged animal. I feel like if somebody just let me out of this cage, I'd go crazy. I said, that doesn't sound weird at all. Matter of fact, I'm from Texas. You guys know this. Like, I grew up in Midland, Texas. I had a raccoon growing up. I had a wild animal as a pet, okay? I remember we found this thing in the backyard, and we kept it since it was a baby. But we didn't know what it ate. We didn't know when it slept. We didn't know how to take care of it. It was a wild animal. But we did some research. We started to learn about it. That thing lived to be 15 years old. It was overweight, and it was super happy, just on the couch every single day, just eating snacks. But we knew what it ate. We knew how to take care of it because we got to know it. I promise you. You're kind of like that wild animal when you don't know yourself. But as soon as you get to know yourself, you can control yourself. You really can. You know what you like. You know what you don't like. You know what your triggers are. You know what to avoid. You know what to do. You know how to ask for help. And you know how to get it. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Respect. Let's go on to the next one. What's another quality that a leader has to have? You're right here. Yes, someone who's able to give up from themselves to help others. So basically, somebody who's empathetic, somebody who has empathy, somebody who can put themselves in other people's shoes. Does that make sense? Here's the thing about that. It's a beautiful thing to have empathy. You have to be able to change your position. I believe that your perspective in life is based on your position. Does that make sense? Like if you wanted to see what I'm seeing right now, you would have to get up out of your seat and you would have to come stand by me. You would have to change your position to change your perspective, and then you could see life from my point of view. That goes for everybody. I mean, that goes for the kid that's sitting by themselves at lunch every single day. Instead of making assumptions from the other side of the room, if we get up and we change our position and we go get close to them, then we can change our perspective. We can see life from their point of view. And I have this saying, I tell people we can put each other in each other's shoes, but I can't put myself in your brain, so I never know exactly what it's like to be you. You'll never know exactly what it's like to be me. You'll never know exactly what you're going through, what you're going home to. I'll never know that. But if you tell me how it feels to be you, then I could relate to you. I believe that we relate to each other through our feelings. That's why when I was here last time, I told you guys that if you're not talking about your feelings, then you're not fully connecting and relating to the people around you. So if we get close to each other, we get connected, and we really tell each other how we feel. We tell each other the truth. And the truth, ladies and gentlemen, is not just what you're going through and what you've gone through. The truth is how you're feeling and how you're dealing with it. If we tell people that, then we can get connected. We can push back against all the pressures that we feel alone in together. And life gets easier, lighter, and better when we do it together. Let's do one more, and we'll move on to the next level. Right here. Exactly. Understanding that somebody's not the exact same as you and their reaction is different. It goes back to the perspective thing. Seriously. If your perspective is based on your position, then your reaction is based on your perspective. So let's walk this through real quick. Your position changes your perspective. When you change your perspective, it changes your reaction. Reaction is another word for result to me. It changes the result that you get. I can give you one example of this. During COVID, me and my son, my wife, were at the house one day, and I was kind of having a hard time during COVID because my job is to travel and speak to people, right? That was like the two things they said you couldn't do. I turned on the news, it said no more travel and stay away from people. I thought my world was ending, right? My job is done. I just got a house, and I was like, we're going to have to sell the house. I don't know how to pay these bills. I was having a lot of uncertainty that brought a bunch of anxiety. I was in panic mode, right? But then I noticed something. My son was having the best time of his life. The dude was running around the house, Batman cape. He was having a good old time. Like, he was happier than I've ever seen him before. So I thought, how is he so happy? Like, from my perspective, the world was ending. But my son's perspective was different. Me not traveling to him was a good thing. It meant that I could stay home and I could play more. So he was happy. And I had a choice. And I believe every single one of you in this room has a choice in every situation you're in. You have a choice to pick out the positivity by shifting your perspective. I could choose to continue to see life from my perspective, which was panic. Or I could shift my perspective to my son's perspective, and I could be a better father. So I chose to shift my perspective, play more with my son. We got closer. I shifted my perspective with my wife. I became a better husband. And we got closer as a family during COVID. All because we decided to shift our perspective, pick out the parts of the problem that we could control, that we could change. We got closer as a family. I believe you can do that in any problem in your life. Pick out the positivity. That's what a leader does. You actually get really, really good at doing that. When you figure out the qualities and the characteristics of a leader, which I believe you all already know, we could go on like this for hours. But for time's sake, we're going to go on to level number 2. Once you realize what it takes, you can reflect back on you. And you can see that you have a lot of these qualities. We do these things called leadership summits. We're going to do one after here. And what usually happens when we walk into a class, there's about 30, 40 kids in leadership summits. I'll tell them that they're handpicked by the staff to be there, which is true, because they're the most influential kids on campus, because they're leaders, right? They never believe it. Every time somebody raises their hand and say, are we in trouble? Like, why do you think we're in trouble? Like, oh, because I'm a bad kid. Like, who told you you're a bad kid? And they're always like, well, she's in here, he's in here, I'm in here, we're bad kids. I'm like, who told you? And they never know. What happens is they got in trouble a few times, and now they think that everybody sees them as bad kids. That's how they see themselves. It's what I call the label. They had labeled themselves the bad kid. Just like last time I told you, I labeled myself the shy kid. I was the kid that sat in the back of the class, didn't talk to nobody, didn't tell nobody how he felt. So anytime I was going through something, it felt like it was only happening to me because I never told anybody. But that label stopped me from reaching out. Their label, the bad kid, stopped them from getting good grades, stopped them from hanging out with certain people, stopped them from having, any trust of authority, any relationship with any teacher. They couldn't talk to nobody that was an adult because they were the bad kids in their mind. Little did they know that they were handpicked to be there because the staff saw them as leaders. See, the way we see ourselves is not the way that other people see us, and the other way around as well. I told you last time, whatever you say about yourself, that's what becomes true. It doesn't really matter what other people say about you. If you label yourself, then you limit yourself. Remember that. So at level number 2, once we know what it takes to be a leader, what those qualities look like, then we reflect, we look within ourselves, and we find those qualities that we do have. Most of you are leaders. You might just be going the wrong way. Let's be honest. People are already looking at you for influence. Your friends already come to you with their problems. Some of us are just not aiming high enough. As a leader, your aim is everything. This is how a leader should aim. This is how a leader makes decisions to me personally. This is what I believe. When you make a decision in your life as a leader, you have to ask yourself, is it good for me? Is it good for my friends and my family? Is it good for the rest of the school, society, the community? If all of those things align, I call that the straight and narrow path. It's a good decision. And then you have to ask yourself, is it good for me today, tomorrow, and 10 years? Is it good for my family, my friends today, tomorrow, in 10 years? Is it good for society today, tomorrow, in 10 years? If all of that aligns, it's a good decision. That's your aim as a leader. You aim up, you aim for the highest possible good. Does that make sense? Most of y'all that play sports, you should understand this. When you lose, even when you lose a game, what does the coach tell you? Keep your head what? Up high. Why? Why would you say that? Because if you look down, you're going to start to go down. You're creatures of aim, whether you know it or not. Even if I wanted to leave right now, I got to turn, look at the door, and I got to walk. I'm always aiming at something. Physically, mentally, you're always aiming at something. Some of us just need to direct our aim a little bit higher. If you become known as the person that always aims for the win-win, meaning that if you win, everybody around you wins, other people will help you win. Because they know that if you win, they win too. Does that make sense? That's what leaders do. We aim up. We aim for the highest possible good. You reflect on yourself and you realize that you have these qualities, and then you start to respect yourself. That means you can have respect for yourself and for other people. You have respect to give now. Does that make sense? If you look up at the board, you'll see that there's ways to do this. Journaling, mindfulness, meditation, seeking feedback, asking other people what they see within you. And then you telling other people what you see within them, because sometimes we just can't see it because we have those labels that have limited us. Self-assessment, self-reflection exercises, that's some of the things that we're going to do later in that group. But really what you can do is you can write down all of those qualities that we talked about earlier. Add your own to those. What type of leader you follow. And then become that person. Look up to yourself in 5 years, in 10 years. Does that make sense? Thank you. All right, level number 3. This is where we remove the labels. I don't know what your labels are. When I go to a lot of schools, a lot of the labels that I hear is just not good enough. Kids will literally tell me, I've just labeled myself not enough. And let me tell you, if you label yourself not enough, then you'll never be enough until you remove that label. Not smart enough, not this enough, not strong enough, not that enough, just not enough. Look at the label like it's a lid on the little box that you put yourself in when you say those things about you. You have to remove that label. Sometimes it's like a kick me sign on your back. You don't even know it's there. That's why we need to help each other say, hey, that's not who you are. And we pull those labels off. And then what we put on is a new label. Leader, think about it. It's limitless. Think about the label leader. We could have went on for hours talking about what it means to be a leader. It's limitless. Human being, another label that's limitless. Think about all the amazing things that human beings have accomplished. That's within you. That's who you are. So you relabel yourself in a new positive light. And you move on to level number 4. You start to build relationships on this new foundation of truth that you have. Now when you know who you are, then you can build real relationships. Think about the type of relationships that you've had in the past that haven't worked out. Friendships, whatever. They were built on the false foundation of fake smiles. Let's be honest. Pretending to be somebody we're not to please people that didn't even know the real us. And maybe we didn't even really know the real us, so maybe that's valid, right? But once you get to know who you are, then you can build real relationships on the truth. Then you can have trust. What's a relationship without trust? I'd argue it's not a relationship at all. If you look up at the board, you see these 2 girls. I met them in Santa Clarita, California. I was speaking to them when they were in 7th grade. These 2 girls got in a fight before the presentation. A real fight in the middle of the gym, right on the floor. The teachers were pulling them apart, and the teacher looked at me and she goes, Jared, don't worry, I'm sending them both to ISS. I said, no. They obviously need to stay. I said, can you sit them up front? When I tell you the whole time that I was talking, the 2 girls sitting right in the front row, they didn't say a word. They just looked straight. They didn't say a word to each other. About halfway through the program, I noticed that they start talking. They're just whispering things back and forth. After the program, I see them walk out, they're together. So I thought, they're either out there talking in the hallway or they're fighting in the hallway. They were just out there talking. A year later, I come to their school, now they're in 8th grade. I'll never forget, as soon as I walk in the gym, these 2 girls see me, they start running at me. I thought I was about to get jumped. I didn't know what was happening. I was like, they remember. But they got to me and they told me their story. And so I pulled out my phone, I was like, I gotta show this to the leadership class. Check this out.
This is a year ago. And I always knew she's been saying it forever, and we
said if you'd never came to the school, we'd have never became friends. That's not the truth. The truth is, if they would have never went out in the hallway and told each other their truth, they'd have never became friends. That's the truth. You see the type of relationship that they built? I know you can see it, right? These two girls, they're just like, she was at my house all summer. I can't get away from her. She literally called, she said, she's my safe spot. The reason why they said that is because they were a part of the leadership class, and they came up with this idea called the Safe Spot. It was a group, after-school group, where kids that were disconnected could come and get connected and build new relationships. They realized that the only reason they were fighting is because they were fighting their feelings. Nobody knew how they felt. That's the case at a lot of schools. When I go to a lot of schools that have a lot of fights at their school, it's really just they're fighting their feelings. They don't know how to fight. They don't know how to face their feelings, so they fight their feelings and end up fighting each other. That's what it is. So they created a solution together. Now they built a type of relationship that's going to last because it's built on the foundation of truth. Those are the type of relationships that you're going to build as a leader when you know you and you build the relationships on the truth. You'll move to level number 5. Level number 5 is responsibility. As a leader with self-respect and a strong network of strong, positive relationships, it's now your responsibility to help others do the same thing. That is literally why I am here today doing what I do. Because I believe when you learn something, it's your obligation to go back and teach it to others. I believe that if you have the power, the ability to do something positive in someone's life, it's your responsibility to do it. Now, I know responsibility sounds like a bad word to you guys. It sounds like chores. It sounds like making your bed, taking out the trash. But let me tell you that responsibility is actually another word for purpose. It's another word for the meaning of your life. I talk to adults too. I go to companies and I'll talk to adults that afterwards adults will come up to me and say, Jared, I never wanted to work at this company. I had a guy, about 55 years old, come up to me the other day at a mortgage loan company, came up in tears afterwards because his dream when he was a child was he wanted to be an artist. He realized in that presentation that the way he said it, I climbed the wrong mountain. He said sometimes when you're so focused on the things that are beneath you, and you're just climbing, you're climbing, you never look up. He said you get to the top and you realize you climbed the wrong mountain. And he was in tears. And he told me something I'll never forget. He said, I wish when I was a kid I would have chose my responsibilities. He said, instead, I delayed my responsibility because I thought responsibility was a bad thing. He said, I delayed responsibility for so long that eventually responsibility just chose me. He said, and then I had a meaning for my life that I didn't even want in the first place. So then I'm going across the country, I'm telling kids, hey, choose the necessary sacrifices now before those sacrifices choose you. Choose your responsibility, take on responsibility, take on purpose at a young age, the purpose that you choose for yourself before it's too late. I told you last time when I came here, there's something that hurts a lot more than, rejection and all those things that you're scared of that are stopping you from taking on responsibility. It's called regret. And I don't want you to regret not reaching out, not trying, not taking on responsibility because you think you're not good enough, not smart enough, you're not qualified. It doesn't matter. Start now. Start now doing what you love, figuring out what you like to do, what you want to do, who you want to be. And it may be a struggle, but struggle forward, my friends, seriously. That's what taking on responsibility is. Taking on responsibility gives meaning and purpose to your life. Don't run from it. Don't hide from it. It's one of the most important things that you can do. And your responsibility, I believe here, a big part of it, is getting other people connected to that positive community that you've been building. When you start to build better relationships, your responsibility to teach people how to do the same thing. Reach out to those kids that are disconnected and get them connected. I told you last time about my friend Kaylee, the little girl that was disconnected, that was in the program. She was sitting by herself, and she was suicidal, and nobody knew it. And then one little boy took 5 seconds out of his day to come and sit by her. It changed her life. It saved her life. 5 seconds. Doesn't take that long. It's not that hard. The only thing that's stopping you from taking responsibility is you. But once you do that, you'll get to level number 6. That's real results. That real results, that's the action, that's the evidence that you got what it takes to be a leader. You're just going to start to see the fruits of your labor at this point. So I want to share with you a couple examples of this. If you look up the board, this girl over here on the left side, we met her in California as well. She's a lot like our friend Ryan. I told you the story, Ryan, last time about a little boy that hit that buzzer beater. You remember that? This little girl, she was born with a learning disorder as well. It was very hard for her to learn and communicate with the world around her, and the lack of communication made her feel disconnected. She felt different from everybody else. So she'd come home crying to her mom, and she said, "Mom, I don't understand. Everybody says that I'm different," but she's like, "I look around and everybody else is different too." She said, "I'm different, they're different, why can't we be friends?" So she made a t-shirt. You look at her t-shirt, it says, "I'm different, you're different, let's be friends." She started to wear it on Fridays to school. Every Friday she'd put on this shirt, she'd wear it. It started to become a conversation piece, right? People started to walk up to her like, "Hey, where'd you get that shirt?" I remember the first time I went to her school, everybody was wearing those shirts. I said the same thing. I said, "That's a cool shirt. Where can I get one?" And that's when they told me her story. See, I was speaking at her school on a day that they called Be the Difference Day. She started that day 7 years ago. She don't even go to that school anymore. But they hired me to come speak on a day that was inspired by this girl. Because she wore that shirt and she celebrated her differences. Soon she made new friends. The friends started passing out the shirts. It became bigger than the shirt. It was a movement, right? It changed the culture. So much so that we started to tell her stories in leadership classes. One of those classes, this girl was in. Her name is Shay. Shay was being bullied online, on Facebook, so much that on her Facebook wall, people were telling her to end her own life. Now, this was back when Facebook first started coming out. So it went viral. It ended up on the Today Show. So imagine being cyberbullied and then it being on national news. She was in one of our leadership classes. There was a girl that was a cheerleader in that leadership class. She wasn't friends with Shay. She didn't even know Shay. But she looked at this girl and she said, "I'm different, you're different, let's be friends." She said that was a t-shirt and it turned into a movement. She said, "Let's make a t-shirt that says I'm with Shay." She said, "I can get all the cheerleaders to wear it. I can get the football players to wear it. We'll wear it on Friday. We'll wear it in the pep rallies. We'll get the whole school to wear it." Pretty much everybody in that school was wearing that t-shirt by the next week, by the next Friday. That made it on national news. The positivity replaced the negativity. Now Shay travels and speaks across the country to kids just like I do. And if you really think about it, it started with this girl and her idea, that movement to make a difference, to be a difference. That's the type of movements, that's the type of culture that you can build here today. We're going to be doing a leadership class after this. There's a select few of you that are going to be in the leadership class. We're going to really go through the challenges that you face here at campus, at home, in your lives, and then we're going to work together in groups to come up with real solutions. And the only reason I'm telling everybody this is when those solutions start to be presented to you, you'll know where they came from. They came from you. They came from students just like you in your school that know what you're going through. And if you pick those up and you run with them, you can change your school. Not just while you're here, for the future generations. That's my why. That's why I'm here today. When you get to level number 6 and you start to get real results, you have to remember your why. So that way you don't get a big head and you don't get lost, right? You have to remember why you did this in the first place. For me, I think about my son. I think about growing up in school without a mental health curriculum, without social emotional learning, without understanding how to manage my mind and my emotions, just lost in a sea of emotions. I remember what that felt like. That's why I'm here today. And my son, he doesn't just represent my son. He represents the future generations. He represents you. Every time I'm up on stage and I look out at you and I see your faces looking back at me and I see some of you nodding when I talk about certain things, I understand that you feel that. And we relate to each other through our feelings. I know what it's like to sit out there and the you that's looking back at me right now not be the real you. I understand what it's like to hide behind a fake smile, that masking of your emotions and pretend that it's okay every single day because you don't know how to talk about it. Because it's scary. I get it. I understand that all the fears that you don't face in your life, they become your limits. So if you don't get good at facing your fears now, you're going to box yourself in. I told you guys last time, I understand what it's like to be someone like Kaylee out there in the crowd crying out for help, but nobody helps you. I understand. And because you know how that feels, I believe you know how to help. And that's why we created this program. To listen to you, so that way you can get your ideas out. You can tell us what you would do if you were in charge. That's what the leadership program is about. You see number 2 up there, it's called Cultural Connection Day. I was at a school in California one time. The biggest problem at their school was racism, discrimination. So they came up with a Cultural Connection Day because they realized it was a miscommunication. They didn't understand each other. And the misunderstanding was what was causing all of the fights, all of the problems. So they decided to have a Cultural Connection Day where everybody would dress up like their ancestors. They would bring food from their cultures, music from their cultures. They had a big field day on Friday. They had guest speakers from different cultures to come speak and educate other people about their differences. They celebrated their differences. That's been going on for 5 years now. I go every August 28th to speak at this same school. It's gotten so big that now they do it at the community center downtown, and all the other schools bus their kids there. It started with 15 kids in the cafeteria. This is really taking over the culture and changing your community. This isn't just a 45-minute presentation to make you feel good later. I want you to understand that you have the control to change your environment. It starts with your thoughts, it comes out as your words and your actions, and it changes the room. We're going to do the same exercise that we did last time just to prove it to you. I'm going to give you 10 seconds. And in that 10 seconds, I want you to look to the person on the left, look to the person on the right, give them a genuine compliment, say something nice. You got 10 seconds. Ready, set, go. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Clap once if you can hear me. Clap 2 times if you can hear me. All right, look. Again, most of you have smiles on your faces right now because somebody said something nice to you. I told you last time, if you were like me in high school, that didn't happen every single day. But you lifted and you shifted the atmosphere with your words and your actions. In 10 seconds, imagine if you did that every single day. Take a few seconds out of your day to make somebody else's day. Every single day, you would change the culture, you would change your school, you would change the climate. That's how you be the difference in somebody's life instead of being the problem, which is your responsibility as a leader. It's a decision. It's a decision to change someone's life. It's a choice to change someone's life. It's a choice to change your own life. I told you this last time. We could talk about change for 45 minutes. You go back to class and change nothing, then nothing would change. As a leader, you have to act. ACT, ACT, it stands for Acting with Compassion Today. T stands for today because you never know what somebody's going through and you never know when it might be too late. So as leaders, we act today. A couple months ago, I was in Oregon, and I was at this school, and there was this little boy. I say little boy, he was 18 years old. Little to me, that's how old I'm getting. But he waited 3 hours to talk to me. 3 hours. I had a leadership class right after the assembly. And then after the leadership class, the leadership kids wanted to talk to me, so we talked even longer. And I leave, and it's like 4:30. I mean, the bus has already left. I'm walking out, and this kid's sitting by my rental car. He said, "Do you remember me?" And honestly, I didn't. I said, "No, man, I'm sorry." He said, 3 years ago, you went to my middle school. He said, I said, that math doesn't add up, you know, like you're 18-year-old. Are you about to graduate? He said, "Man, I'm not even in school anymore." The teachers just let him come. Here's why. He was emancipated. He was homeless. He was sleeping in the dugout in baseball fields. His name is Nolan Crombie. He said, "When you came to my school, you changed my life, man." He said, "I've just been working 2 jobs. I've been sleeping at the school. So I finally got this truck. Now I'm sleeping in the truck." I said, "Nolan, you need to graduate, you know. What can you do to graduate? Can you graduate?" He said, "I would have to do so much work, man. I would have to catch up." He was making all these excuses. I said, "Look, I'll make you a deal." I said, "If you can find a way to graduate, I don't know how you're going to do it. But if you can find a way, then I'll give you a job. Well, no one calls me. Maybe a month ago. And he graduated. He moved to Texas. Now the kid's he's living in my house right now, but he's got a job. He's doing his thing. And just 2 weeks ago, he spoke in front of his first crowd because he wants to be a motivational speaker. So I want to show you one of those clips real quick. But can we just give him a big round of applause real quick?
There came a time where Jared came to the school and I was listening to his speech. And like he said, I waited around for 3 hours. When I was listening to his speech, I heard about him talking about how he was feeling alone, how he felt alone, and how he was so afraid, and how he felt so much pressure, but he was putting on this fake face. And I did that for years of my life. I even grew up in an abusive household. I grew up with an abusive alcoholic parent, and she went into rehab, lost a relationship then. So when Jared came, he gave his speech, and I really needed to talk to this guy. And I felt desperate, like he was saying. I was willing to do anything because I had no other options. I was all alone. I had no friends to go to. I had no parents. All my siblings left me alone because they thought that I was just going into this black hole that I can't escape from. And I don't blame them. I was an addict. But Jared, he stayed after, and I saw the line of kids. There was at least 50 kids waiting to talk to him. And I sat there thinking, I'm like, I'm not going to have my chance. But that didn't stop me. I skipped the rest of my classes for the rest of the school day, and I stayed in the commons right outside the gym where he was speaking for 3 hours waiting. And the school day was over. He finally walked out like an hour after school got out. I told him I was homeless at the time. I told him I lost my best friend, and I told him I was stuck. I was on the edge of giving up. And he gave me the one thing that I really want you guys to leave with, and he stressed it the entire night. It's hope. Because I don't want to be another speaker who says, if I can do it, you can do it too, but it's true. If I'm here and I was homeless, I was an addict, not to mention, this wasn't even a year ago. And today, holy silver, not doing anything, I'm in front of you, speaking, hopefully giving you guys hope and showing you that it's proof. And that Jared can change lives, but more importantly, only you can change your life. We can come up here and speak all day and night, and it's up to you if you want to listen and apply it into your life. Thank you, guys.
Let's hear it for Nolan, please. That brings us to the last level of leadership for me, which is remember and react. Remember, ACT stands for Acting with Compassion Today. When I was at that school, this level popped in my head. Right after we got done with the leadership class, I walk outside, there's a boy sitting next to my car, and he's homeless. And I remember what I'm really doing this for. And I reacted with compassion today. And I hope that story inspires you to do the same thing. I know you see people all the time struggling with things that you've struggled with before. Maybe you're struggling with it right now. And together we're better, we can do this. I know you see it all the time when you're walking through the hallways. You see people that are disconnected, and you know what it feels like to be disconnected. Maybe you're connected here. Maybe you have friends. Maybe you know what it's like to be disconnected at home. Maybe you know what it feels like, and I'm sure you do. If you talk about your feelings, we can relate to each other, and you know how that feels. And then you can help somebody through the very thing that hurt you. In fact, I told you earlier, the last level of healing is helping. Because when you finally help somebody heal from the very thing that hurt you, that's when life comes full circle. That's what helps heal you. Now, before we go any further, I want to open it up. I want to open it up to some questions. We have a little bit of time, so I want you to ask some questions about how you can be a better leader, about how you can maybe even something personal, help yourself, help somebody. What are the challenges that you're facing here at your school? What are some things that we need to overcome? Maybe we can talk about it right now, and we can use that momentum of going into the leadership program. What are some challenges that you guys are facing at your school, in your community, in your house? Somebody's got to be vulnerable today. We talked about it last time. I told you the vulnerability is the key that's going to set you free. What's up? So let's talk about the mom thing now, because I can relate to that. I'll talk to what I can relate to. So you and your mom have been struggling. I can relate to it with my father. That's who I can really relate to it with. There was a misunderstanding for years of my life between me and my dad because, well, I never really had any empathy. I just blamed him for everything. There was no forgiveness. I didn't understand when I was a kid that forgiveness is what detaches negative emotions from traumatic experiences. Without forgiveness, you'll never really be free from anything. When I was 21 years old is when I had my son. My son was born. And I remember when I was a kid, I told myself I would never have a kid until I was ready to have a kid. Which adults laugh at me when I say that now, but I didn't understand what I was saying. Really, nobody's ready. But at the time, I was like, I know what it's like to have young parents that weren't ready to be parents, so I'm not going to have a kid until I'm ready. Well, I remember when I held my son for the first time in the hospital, I looked down at him and I was like, oh no, I'm not ready. I felt like I had already failed him as a father. I immediately called my dad. In the hospital, holding my son in tears, I called my dad and I apologized for all the things that I blamed him for, which was pretty much everything. And he cried to me and he asked me, son, he said, will you let me be a part of Jaden's life? And that's my baby boy. And I said, absolutely. He said, I want to try again. And I said, Dad, I know I'm 21 years old, but I still need a dad. It's not too late. I need you more now than ever. And that really opened his mind. He thought that it was already too late. I don't know what some of you might think it's already too late for, but I promise you it's never too late for forgiveness. You can move forward from that. What else? Come on, let's go. Right there, I'm coming back to you. So a lot of people don't understand what other people are going through. There's a lot of discrimination going on. And we talked about it a little bit already. I told you another school that was dealing with that. The main thing was the lack of communication. When there's a lack of communication, there's obviously going to be a misunderstanding because we're not communicating, right? We're not talking about what's wrong. We don't know what's going on. If I don't know, I can't fix it. I have a saying, and I hope y'all listen to this. I hope you're listening. Awareness does not automatically fix a problem, but it does allow you to create a personalized solution to the problem. So you have to have awareness of the problem first. That's why the first step is always awareness. First step of this program was what does it take, right? You have to know what it takes first, right? You have to know what's going on first. You have to have that awareness. And when you don't have the awareness, the knowledge, the understanding, there's an old saying, that people will perish for the lack of their knowledge. It's important to know. Let me give you an example of this. When I was 21, I had already been speaking in schools for 6 years. So I had told myself that I didn't need to go to college because I already had a career. I was making good money. I was traveling the country. I was like, I don't need to go to school. But then kids started coming up to me after programs asking me really hard questions. And I didn't have any answers. I didn't know what to say besides, I understand, I feel you, I hope it gets better. And we would trauma bond to each other, meaning we knew we weren't alone, so it made us feel better for the moment, but then when I went back home, I was alone and they were alone. We were still alone in our feelings. Does that make sense? So I was like, I got to get some better answers. So I went back to school so that way I could understand. And that understanding is what really brought healing. Knowing. I have people in my family, they suffer from mental disorders, from illnesses, and me understanding what those things were and what they are, it let me separate the disorder from the person. And I could love the person. You see what I'm saying? I could see that people in my life that were struggling with things, that they really were doing their best, given the cards that they were dealt. The understanding is what brought the healing. It's time for one more. Time to go? One more. I saw you first. I'll come to you. I'm I'm gonna get some workout up here. Can't breathe up here. What's that? That's great. All right, y'all listening? This is a good one. Clap once if you can hear me. She said, how can you be a leader when you're so honest that it hurts people, basically, and people don't understand you? People are mad at you, basically, for telling the truth. Well, here's the truth. The truth hurts, right? You know why the truth hurts, though? Seriously? The truth hurts because lies die when the truth is told. And some people might be living lies. So when you tell the truth, in a way, it kind of kills part of their identity. It's who they thought they were. There's a thing called cognitive dissonance. It's when you're holding two contradictory beliefs in your brain at the same time, two or more. So imagine somebody walks up to you and says, are you okay? And you're clearly not. But you lie and you say, I'm fine. Now you're not who you say you are. You're actually a liar. You lied to yourself and to everybody else. To not look vulnerable, you want to look strong. I understand why we did it. But I want you to understand that's what you're doing. And do you like liars? No. I mean, so you lie to yourself enough, you get to the point where you eventually start to treat you like a liar. You might even start to hate yourself, resent yourself, right? You know you need help, but you're saying, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And then you create personas, different people. You're a different person around every group of people that you're around. You're a different person around your parents than your friends. You're a different person at school than you are at home. Different person on social media than you are in real life, right? You have all these people and personas to keep up with. That's a lot of stress on your brain. Because your brain has to remember all the lies and still try to remember the truth. So your brain starts sending cortisol, stress hormones, norepinephrine, adrenaline is flushing through your body. You're living in fight or flight mode, basically, and you can't do that forever. You can't live in constant stress mode. In fact, stress is one of the #1 killers in the world. So now the lies that you've been telling are doing physical harm to you. So your brain starts to send you signals like, kill the lie. Get rid of the lies. Because the lies are causing us physical harm. But what happens when you put your identity in the lie? You lie to yourself so much that you actually believe it. So then getting rid of the lie means getting rid of yourself, and you're not willing to do that. Imagine if you identified with yourself as the problem, the disorder, the dysfunction. And you tell yourself, and a lot of us have gotten to this point, we're like, if I'm the problem, then maybe I should get rid of me. That's the lie. Your identity is not in the lie, ladies and gentlemen. Your identity is in the truth. And maybe the truth is that you're not okay right now, but it's better to be not okay and say it than be not okay and lie and say that you're fine. So the next time somebody points the truth out and it hurts a little bit, you might have to let part of that go. Maybe it hurt because it was true. And maybe you need to reflect so that way you can get the help that you need that's going to keep you happy, healthy, and alive. Thank you guys. That's my time.
Remember, most of you know we're on spring break next week, so enjoy your spring break. Couple things real quick. While we're on spring break, some of you are on spring break next week. We're all on spring break. Some of you may be traveling, but we're going to have some athletes and students competing in various things. I kind of want to throw that out and recognize them right now. We have some art students going tomorrow to North Forney for the base competition. We'd like to wish them good luck. We also have girls powerlifting is this weekend. Regional powerlifting. And I believe next week, during the week, we have the boys going to regionals powerlifting. So congratulations to everyone. All right, So we're going to dismiss. We're going to go. Most of you got your stuff. Some of you got to go back to second period and get it. If you go back, we're going to report to third period. We'll follow the bell schedule the rest of the way. Hold on a second. At this time, I need this first section up here. You're going to come down and go out the front door there. We're going to have this section right here. You're going to come down and go around again and go out the other side like you came in. Middle section, stay seated. Middle section, stay seated. MJ! MJ! MJ!
Mark Flanagan!
Sit up down. Middle section, sit down. MJ, have a seat.
All right, we're done. No, I do not.